So here we are with the second installment of the Suited Shootist video series. And what I wanted to talk about today was actually something that came up in one of my Facebook threads during the week. And what we're looking at here is your clothing, your wardrobe, serves as a tool, the same way that your pistol does. And just like that pistol, just like a table saw, a lack of understanding of how the tool is supposed to function can lead to misuse. And that misuse can lead to unintended damage. Now, I'm not about to sit here and suggest that if your tie doesn't match your socks, that that's somehow going to get you killed in the streets, because that's ridiculous. However, it's not to say that it can't have a negative impact on you socially, depending on the scenario. And the nice thing is because the stakes are so much lower, it allows you a little bit more leeway for trial and error to figure out what works for you. Because those unintended consequences can sometimes matter. You hear a lot of people talk about how first impressions can be so critical, and this is a way to help control that. Because what a lot of people seem to kind of miss is, despite the fact that this whole channel is called the Suited Shootist, it's not exclusively about suits and ties. It's not just formal attire. It is more about dressing with intent and just controlling that nonverbal method of communication that some people ignore, some people don't even realize exists. Because another important piece of this is, if you intend to dress for your gun, and I say dress for the gun because I'm of the opinion that the expression dress around the gun is an incomplete thought that needs to die. I actually wrote an article about that I'll post below. If you're going to dress for the gun, you need to know what all that is supposed to look like without the gun, so that way it looks that way once you've introduced whatever your preferred carry tools are, whether that be a pistol, whether that be a knife, what have you. Because people pay attention. They may not know what they're seeing, but they definitely will notice when things deviate from the norm. An example that I'll use is, I was hanging out with some friends last night, and we were at a cigar shop, just all sitting around talking, having a good time. And this fellow walked in, kind of wearing the uniform of the retired Texan. He had the big old cowboy hat on, Hawaiian shirt, pressed jeans with the crease down the front, some very nice boots, and he had a big old tumor on his right hip, and it was very obvious that he was carrying a pistol. To the point where, I couldn't tell the make and model, but I certainly wouldn't call that concealed. Now, in that environment, there was no consequence to it, because everybody basically knew him. They knew his lifestyle, and so it was just kind of an expected part of who he was. But he had just come from out and about in the normal world, and it took no effort at all to clock this guy as carrying a gun. So, does it matter? Not in that atmosphere, but depending on where he went and who he was interacting with, it could have. And so that's really it. Is this stuff matters? What I think a lot of people seem to dismiss is, for whatever reason, people will strive for excellence at the range with a shot timer. They're striving for excellence in the gym. They're striving for excellence on the mats. But when it comes to their own personal image, it's like, that doesn't matter. It's unimportant. It might be. Again, I don't know everybody's context. I don't know everybody's lifestyle. So it really is up to you to figure out how much of this material, if any, is significant. But bear in mind that just because it's not necessarily something that you put any value or importance on, doesn't necessarily mean that it's unimportant to the people that you're interacting with. And that tends to be, at least for me, that's the safe assumption. Is I'm always going on the fact that somebody that I'm interacting with is paying attention, and so even if it's something as simple as just run down to the supermarket, you're not necessarily going to catch me in joggers and a hoodie. So not to say that I get all suited up for it either, but the idea is that if I'm out and about in the world and I run into a client or a prospective client in my off time, I don't want to look like a bag of hammered ass, because that can potentially impact my business. So this is kind of the thought process as it extends, because if we're striving for that level of excellence on the shot timer, if we're striving for that level of excellence on the mats, why not extend some of that care and attention to how we present ourselves? And again, one of the most common dismissals that you hear is that it's either unimportant or vain or somehow not sufficiently masculine, which is interesting because you look at any military or police organization and they have grooming and uniform standards. Now, part of that is to instill the discipline within their ranks, but part of it is because in order to project a certain level of authority and professionalism, you've got to look the part to a degree. So it's just something to keep in mind, because those impressions are critical. I'll give you another example. If I happen to go to a given defensive pistol class, we all step up to the line, and I break out, a little .32 pocket gun. That's going to not only set a certain expectation, but I may very well get laughed off the range. Whereas if I show up with something a little bit more conventional, this suggests a certain level of, if not ability or capability, then a certain level of contextual understanding. So it's exactly that. Using that pistol class as an example, this suggests that I have a better idea of what I'm doing and what's going on than this. Now, ultimately, the holes in the target are going to dictate whether that's true or not. So it only holds water to a degree, but it's a matter of what message do you want to put forward, because at the end of the day, you can't expect yourself to be treated like a Roland special if you're dressing like a tourist judge. So at least being able to understand how that's being perceived by the outside world, even if it's not something that you necessarily agree with, allows you to control that message. So this one was a little bit more brief. Again, I hope that it's kind of driving home the point, and it's something that people are finding useful. So let me know what you think. Like I said, I always welcome the feedback, and I think that this is going to be kind of my preferred format moving forward. So like I said, I welcome all the feedback, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your week and stay safe.